Discover the incredible moment when a hidden hero transformed lives. Everyone was shocked. In the wake of a devastating storm, Sarah found herself staring into the eyes of anguish around her. The wind had roared and unleashed chaos, ripping trees from their roots, and now, her small suburb lay in shambles. She was a devoted single mother, a cashier at the local grocery store, who devoted her free time at the community center, always trying to uplift those around her. But now, as she surveyed her neighborhood, her heart weighed heavy. That morning, when the winds howled, Jamie and Lucas had clung to her like little lifelines. She held them close, her heart pounding louder than the storm outside. It was a mixture of fear and bravery that fueled her. "We'll get through this," she whispered, but deep down, her own worries wrapped around her like ivy. There was little food left in the pantry, the bills were piling high, and she feared the judgment of her neighbors who didn't understand her struggle. As Sarah stepped outside, she noticed the wide-eyed expressions of neighbors, the street littered with debris and shattered lives. Families hovered in clusters, but conversation was stilted, an invisible barrier kept them apart. In their eyes, Sarah could sense the same mixture of despair and hope she felt mirrored back. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and joined them. "We need to come together," she declared, sensing that determination could mend the fractures, even if only a little. Then, a figure emerged from behind the rubble. Mr. Thompson, the quiet custodian who spent his days cleaning up after everyone, moved with unexpected resolve amidst the chaos. He had seen the battles of life far beyond those suburban streets and began rallying resources for the displaced families. "We can't stand alone," he called out, his gravelly voice cutting through the air like a beacon of hope. Sarah watched with tear-filled eyes, wondering how someone so beaten down could inspire strength in her community. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As days passed, Sarah's admiration for Mr. Thompson turned to frustration. Who did he think he was, trying to breach boundaries that had taken root for generations? One evening, she confronted him, her voice rising like a simmering pot. "You don't know what it's like. You might have served your country, but I'm a mother, fighting daily for my kids." The truth hung in the air, thick and tangible. Mr. Thompson met her anger with quiet understanding, revealing burdens she never expected. Together, they found common ground, weaving a tapestry of their struggles that illuminated the disparity between their lives. Were they allies, or had a storm brewed within them that threatened to tear them apart? The community, once fractured, began to find itself watching the connection form. They saw two different worlds merging, a single mother and a humble custodian teaching a lesson about empathy and understanding. Just as hope began to blossom, an unexpected twist would tear them from their newfound peace, leading Sarah down a path of unimaginable choices. Would she stand for her own worth, or rise as a community leader in the most unexpected of moments? The answer was just beyond the horizon, waiting for her to grasp it tightly. The days that followed the storm were a blur of activity mixed with confusion. Sarah found herself in a whirlwind as Mr. Thompson led the charge to bring the neighborhood together. She watched him organize cleanup crews, gather supplies, and knock on doors, all while shouting encouragement. There was something infectious about his energy. For the first time since the tempest had struck, she felt a flicker of hope, but deep down, Sarah struggled. Being a single mom meant she had to hold everything together. Jamie and Lucas needed her, and she couldn't let them see her falter in the face of uncertainty. One afternoon, while sorting through what little was left of their pantry, she glanced at her boys. Their laughter echoed in the room, a sweet sound but one that made her chest tighten with guilt. Did they know just how precarious their lives had become? As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Sarah summoned the courage to join Mr. Thompson for a community meeting at the park. Chairs were set up in a circle, a makeshift gathering among the rubble and fallen branches. This wasn't just about cleanup anymore, it was about survival. Mr. Thompson stood, urging everyone to voice their needs and fears. "We need to lift each other up," he insisted, his voice steady, resonating with strength. They needed to share more than just supplies, they needed support, understanding, and community. Sarah felt a surge, a mix of fear and admiration as she clutched the armrest of her chair, wavering between speaking out or sitting silent. Then, she felt the pull of vulnerability. In a moment that felt like a leap into the unknown, she stood. "I can't pretend everything is fine," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I'm scared. Scared for my kids, for all of us. But I know we can do this together." A quiet rippling of agreement moved through the group, heads nodding as others found courage to share their fears. By the time the meeting wrapped up, something significant had shifted. Neighbors began to unite, sharing contacts, pooling resources. Sarah returned home with Jamie and Lucas, their little hands in hers, spirits a bit lighter. Their home might have been battered, but tonight, it felt like something was changing. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, life began to reorganize itself. Sarah found herself working alongside Mr. Thompson more often, despite their earlier differences. They shared laughs, arguments, and even a lunch in the park, feeling less like foes and more like comrades in this unexpected fight. The community center became a hub where families came together, sharing meals and stories. Laughter started to fill the void left by the storm. The children played in the parking lot, creating their own little world amid broken branches and repaired fences. As a tense calm settled over the neighborhood, Sarah caught herself glancing at Mr. Thompson during a particularly chaotic but joyful community dinner. He was dishing out plates, smiling as he chatted with the kids. The sight sent a wave of gratitude through her. He had transformed from just a caretaker to a pillar of strength. But a nagging doubt stirred within. Would this newly found unity withstand the test of time? Just then, a flicker of worry crossed Mr. Thompson's face. He caught Sarah's eye and nodded toward the back of the room. A group of strangers in rumpled clothing had just walked in, looking lost and out of place amid the laughter and camaraderie. They were without homes, added burdens the community hadn't foreseen. In that moment, everything could unravel. Sarah felt her heart race. Would they close ranks, or would fear tear them apart again? The answer loomed just beyond reach, but one thing was clear: a deeper storm was approaching. Would Sarah rise again, or would she crumble under the weight of new challenges? The unexpected arrival of the strangers cast a shadow over the vibrant gathering. Sarah felt the air shift, the laughter fading like sunlight behind thick clouds. Their faces were weary, haunted by uncertainty, and she could almost hear the unspoken questions that hung in the room. Here was a reflection of her own fears. What if that was her family? Mr. Thompson stepped forward, his bravado momentarily giving way to genuine concern. "Welcome," he called out, his voice steady but softer. "We're glad you're here. Can we get you anything? Food? Water?" One of the newcomers, a woman in a tattered jacket, looked down as if she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. We heard you were helping people," she stammered, glancing around at the community filled with warmth. "We just lost our home. Everything's gone." Gasps rippled through the gathered crowd, tension palpable. Sarah's heart raced as she took a step closer. She wanted to reach out, to embrace this woman who had just shared such a painful truth. But fear held her back. What if they were a burden? What if their stories turned the tide of unity into resentment? But then, she noticed Jamie and Lucas, their innocent faces filled with concern, footsteps shuffling over to the newcomers. "Do you want to play?" Jamie's voice came out clear and sincere, breaking through the heaviness. It was the innocence of children that could pierce layers of doubt and fear. Mr. Thompson smiled at the boys, his eyes brightening momentarily before returning to the matter at hand. "If you're okay with it, we can set aside some food for you," he said. We have extra resources and we can work through this, together. Others began to stir as well, like flowers bowing to the sun. One by one, they stepped forward, offering canned goods, old blankets, even toys. Sarah could hardly believe what she was seeing. This was the community she had been longing for, and here it was, springing forth in the face of uncertainty. As the strangers accepted the offers, something shifted in the atmosphere. Laughter began to bubble up again, swirling around the room like a warm embrace. Jamie tugged at Sarah's hand. "Mom, can we invite them to our house?" His eyes sparkled with hope. "Yes." Lucas echoed, grinning as he then blurted out, "There's enough room." Tears pricked at Sarah's eyes. How was it that her children could so effortlessly find connection? In that moment, the doubt that had been gnawing at Sarah retreated, replaced by the unmistakable bond of shared humanity. The community moved to include the newcomers, turning the dinner into a potluck of belonging. Plates shuffled, stories flowed, and smiles illuminated the room. As Sarah sat back to take it all in, she realized this was not simply about sharing food, it was about sharing lives. Yet as the night wore on, in the back of her mind, a whisper of worry continued to pulse. This kindness was beautiful, but how would they sustain it amidst the challenge of rebuilding? And what about Mr. Thompson? Could they weather this storm together, or was unity merely a fleeting moment before the next tempest? As Sarah glanced at Mr. Thompson, catching him observing the scene, their eyes locked for a beat longer. A spark ignited between them, a realization that they would need to face whatever came next side by side. Just then, the door creaked open again, and another group appeared. This time, they looked even more lost, more desperate. Sarah's heart sank. The wave of challenges was crashing in. Would there be enough kindness left to go around? The question lingered in the air, heavy with possibility. The newcomers hesitated at the door, their faces a mixture of trepidation and exhaustion. Sarah felt her heart squeeze. How many more would come asking for help? She exchanged a glance with Mr. Thompson, whose brow furrowed deeply, mirroring her unease. With a deep breath, Sarah took a step forward, her voice steady. "You're welcome here," she said, her tone calm despite the chaos brewing inside her. "We're just sharing a meal. Please, come in." They shuffled in slowly, uncertain. A man with a scraped knee leaned heavily on a woman whose eyes held the weight of 1,000 stories. Sarah noticed the little girl clinging to the man, her tiny fingers gripping his shirt as if it were a lifeline. Sarah's heart ached at the sight of such vulnerability. As the door swung shut behind them, a hush settled over the room. A warmth that had filled the space moments before now met the chill of new arrivals. Mr. Thompson regained his composure, gesturing towards the food spread across the table. "We've got plenty to share," he said, his voice rising above the stillness. "Take as much as you need." With a tentative nod, the newcomers ventured forward. Sarah watched as they filled their plates, the clinking of metal on porcelain a soothing melody amidst the uncertainty. Jamie and Lucas, ever the little champions, approached the girl, their smiles welcoming. "Hi. I'm Jamie. Want to play?" Jamie asked. The girl's serious eyes softened, and a flicker of a smile crossed her lips. "Okay," she replied, though it was barely above a whisper. The boys led her away, laughter slowly breaking the tension that had settled like a heavy blanket. Sarah's heart swelled as she observed the scene. It was in these small moments that hope blossomed, even when shadows loomed large. Yet a nagging whisper echoed in her mind. How would they continue to welcome others? Was there truly enough love to extend further, or would they crumble under the weight of their compassion? "Are you all right?" Mr. Thompson's voice pulled her back to reality. He stood at her side, his expression serious, eyes darting toward the newcomers. "What do you think we should do next?" The question hung between them like a fragile thread waiting to unravel. Sarah swallowed hard, summoning her thoughts. "We need to talk about how we can organize resources." If more keep coming, her voice trailed off, but the implication hung in the AIR.MR. Thompson nodded gravely. Yes, but we can't lose this spirit, he countered quickly. Everyone in this room has felt the sting of loss. They're seeking hope, just like we all are. Sarah sensed a determination pooling in her, an unfamiliar strength. They were facing an uphill battle, but together, with their community and newfound connections, they could create a new beginning. Before she could articulate her thoughts, the girl returned, smiling, with Jamie and Lucas trailing behind her. "Can we play games tomorrow?" she exclaimed, her joy a stark contrast to the earlier heaviness. "Of course." Lucas grinned. "You can come over. We can have a whole day of fun." "Yeah. You'll love it," Jamie added. Sarah watched the three of them, her heart lightening. The innocence of childhood was a powerful balm, healing wounds that seemed insurmountable to adults. Maybe she didn't have all the answers, but moments like these were signs that connection and understanding could triumph over despair. But just as she began to believe in the possibility of deeper change, a commotion erupted at the door. Someone cried out, the sound cutting through the laughter like a knife. Sarah turned, eyes widening at the sight of another figure, clearly injured and leaning heavily against the doorframe. "Help please," the newcomer gasped, eyes wide with panic. The room fell silent, tension coiling tightly. Sarah's heart raced once more, uncertainty creeping back in. How could they help again? Was there enough left? The newcomer collapsed forward, crumpling onto the floor. The sound of their body hitting the ground was a harsh reminder of the gravity of the situation. It took a moment for anyone to move. Then Sarah sprang into action, her instincts kicking in. "Get him some water," she cried, rushing to the stranger's side. She could see the pallor of his skin, the sweat beading on his forehead. He looked older than he was, weariness etched into his features, eyes wild with desperation. Thompson hurried to fetch a glass from the kitchen. In that instant, everyone's focus narrowed to the injured man. The previous laughter faded into a hushed concern. The only sounds were heavy breaths, the scraping of chairs, and the distant echo of chaos outside. "Hang in there," Sarah murmured, gripping the man's hand, feeling the tremor beneath her fingers. She looked into his eyes, searching for any glimmer of strength. "You're not alone. We're here to help you." With Mr. Thompson back at her side, Sarah carefully lifted the glass to the man's lips. He drank greedily, his throat working to swallow. Each gulp seemed to bring some relief, a small victory amidst an overwhelming storm. "What happened to you?" she asked gently, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. He looked away momentarily, as if summoning the courage to speak. "They came, others like me they attacked." His voice was a hoarse whisper. "We thought it was safe. We were wrong." Sarah's heart sank. She glanced at Mr. Thompson, who was already shaking his head in disbelief. "We need to gather information," he said softly, his brow creased in thought. As the newcomer spoke, the faces around him displayed a mixture of horror and empathy. They were a community shaped by their shared struggles. Hadn't they all felt that same fear? The echoes of loss reverberated around the room, reminding each of them of the cost of compassion. "We need to be alert," Mr. Thompson replied, his voice steady but urgent. "We can't let fear take hold of us." The children, who had been drawn to the unfolding scene, exchanged worried glances. Jamie leaned into Lucas, face pale. "What does that mean for tomorrow?" he whispered. "Let us not worry them now," Sarah replied, her tone tender but firm. "Right now, we need to focus on helping." She returned her attention to the injured man. "What's your name?" "Ethan," he managed to say, his breath still uneven. "Ethan," Sarah echoed, "you're safe here, for now." In that moment, something flickered in the air, a profound understanding blossoming among the group. People began to move, instinctively finding tasks. Someone fetched more blankets. Others began discussing how they could fortify the shelter. Hope was threading through their hearts, pushing aside despair, igniting a shared determination to protect what little they had left. "Can you walk?" Mr. Thompson asked, assessing Ethan's strength. I can try," Ethan replied, though he looked far from certain. Just then, the sounds from outside grew louder, heavy footsteps echoing down the hall. An uninvited chill slithered through the room. All heads turned towards the door. "Who's there?" Sarah's voice rang out, a blend of bravery and fear spilling from her lips. When the door creaked and swung open slowly, the shadows formed a stark contrast against the warm light inside. A figure appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, and undeniably familiar. "Detective Collins?" Mr. Thompson exclaimed, the surprise written all over his face. Ethan's eyes widened. "You know him?" But the detective's expression showed no sign of relief or reassurance. Instead, it was filled with something darker: concern. "Listen to me. We need to get all of you out of here now." The room fell silent once more, and an unsettling tension settled in. What had they gotten themselves into? Sarah's heart raced. Were they still safe? Or was danger just beginning to unfold? Detective Collins stepped into the room, his eyes scanning the group. It was a mix of familiar faces and strangers, and in an instant, he understood the stakes. "No time to waste," he urged, his voice low but firm. "Ethan, we need you to tell us everything you know now." Ethan squeezed Sarah's hand tighter, his gaze darting from Collins to the faces in the room. It was a community. We were together, trading goods, going about our lives. But they showed up. His breath hitched. "They took us by surprise." "But what do you mean by they?" Mr. Thompson pressed, leaning forward. The urgency in the air was palpable. Sarah felt every heartbeat pulse like a drum. "Raiders." Ethan finally gasped, voice shaking. "They don't give any warning. They come in the night. They take whoever they want." His eyes were pools of fear and realization. "I barely managed to escape." A chill crept over the group. Sarah noticed Lucas hold Jamie a little closer. The children's faces reflected the confusion and fear that radiated from Ethan's trembling form. "Why are you here?" Collins was quick to ask, his tone steady yet urgent. "Where were you going before you collapsed?" "I thought I could reach the old school," Ethan responded hurriedly. "It's been a safe house for those who need refuge. We thought tonight it would be empty," he faltered, and for a moment, it seemed as if the weight of dozens of lives pressed against him. The detective shook his head. "We need to establish a new safe zone. Things are changing fast, and we can't trust that old locations will stay secure. We have to adapt." "Collins." Sarah interrupted, her voice sharper than she intended. "What are you saying? You can't just throw us out there without a plan. What if they're waiting outside?" The detective turned to Sarah, his eyes softening for a brief moment. "I get it. But we have to act. If we've learned anything, it's that our safety can't be taken for granted. Silence can be deadly." Ethan looked to Sarah, searching for assurance. "Do you believe we can do this?" "Right now, we need to stick together," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Every person matters. If we move as one, we stand a chance." "Let us gather supplies," Mr. Thompson suggested, his mind already racing with possibilities. "We need anything we can use for defense, food, water. If the raiders find us here, we won't survive." Detective Collins nodded, all hands on deck. "I want everyone working as a unit. It's the only way." Everyone sprang into action. As they worked, a sense of purpose filled the air. Sarah felt a mix of hope and dread. Would it be enough? The kids helped, true to their nature, innocently yet fervently. The clattering of chairs, the rush of hurried feet, and whispered plans turned into a symphony of activity. In the chaos, there was a strange comfort. They were together, facing something bigger than themselves. Suddenly, from outside, a loud crash shattered the atmosphere. Everyone froze, eyes wide, breaths held. The shadows outside were shifting. "Did you hear that?" Jamie whispered, barely audible over the pounding of hearts. Ethan stood, suddenly more upright than before. "I may be weak, but I won't let fear keep me down," he declared, surprising them all. Damar. Thompson put a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone anymore." Just then, the door rattled violently, and shouts rang out from the other side. The collective fear morphed into something primal, something fierce. "Get ready," Collins commanded. "We need to protect each other." Tension snapped like a taut string, and anticipation hung thick in the air. The sounds of footsteps grew louder, and the question loomed above them all like a dark cloud: who or what would come through that door next? The door bucked violently, rattling on its hinges. Collins tensed, instinctively moving to shield the children. They clustered behind him, their wide eyes reflecting both fear and a flicker of hope. "Stay close," he ordered, his voice cutting through the rising panic in the room. Ethan glanced at Sarah, both of them silently asking if they were ready. "What if it's them?" he whispered, fear etched on his face. The question hung in the air, and Sarah tightened her grip around his fingers, summoning what courage she had. "Whatever it is, we face it together," she replied firmly. With a final shove, the door swung open, and a gust of wind rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and the fading echoes of chaos outside. Instead of raiders, a drenched figure stumbled into the room. It was a woman, panting heavily, her clothes torn, face smudged with dirt. Relief washed over the room but quickly morphed into alarm. They were still on high alert. "Help me," she gasped, collapsing to the ground. "They're coming. They're not far behind." Ethan instinctively knelt beside her, looking deep into her eyes. Who's coming?" "Raiders," she answered, her voice shaking. "They're ruthless. They took everything. My people. They're hunting everyone down." The room erupted in frantic whispers, the tension thickening as one question echoed in their minds: how many were out there? Collins stepped forward, giving off an air of control amidst the chaos, but even he looked unsettled. "Verify if it's clear outside," he instructed Ethan, gesturing towards the window. Swallowing hard, Ethan moved cautiously to the window, peering out into the gloomy dusk. He could see shadows moving, but it was hard to tell if they were raiders or mere figments of his imagination. A hand touched his shoulder, and he jumped, turning to see Sarah standing closely behind him. "Hold my hand," she said, and he grasped her warm fingers. The strength of the connection steadied him, allowing him to focus on the scene outside. "Nothing yet," he whispered back over his shoulder. "But I see movement." "We have to barricade the door," Lucas said, still cradling Jamie against him. "Now. We can't let them in." With a newfound purpose, they grabbed the nearest furniture, a couple of chairs and a heavy table, clogging it against the door in a frantic rush. Sweat dripped down Ethan's brow. As they worked, Sarah's determination intensified, heart racing in her chest. "Everyone, we need a plan," Collins said, his voice sharp but commanding. "We can't simply sit here waiting to be found. We have to draw them away or prepare to fight back." "What if they follow us?" the woman gasped, her face pale but fierce. "They'll hunt us down wherever we go." "We can't let fear dictate our choices," Sarah said, surprising even herself with the conviction behind her words. She glanced at Ethan, finding strength in his reassuring nod. "We can't let them control our lives anymore." A murmur of agreement echoed throughout the room, but uncertainty danced in the air. Each person exchanged wary looks, caught between defiance and dread. Sarah's heart hammered as she caught Collins' gaze. He seemed to see something in her, some flicker of fight buried deep. "Okay," Collins said. "If anyone knows the raiders, it's you," he added, looking directly at the woman on the floor. What are they like? What do they want? There was a pregnant pause as the woman gathered her breath. Her eyes glistened with unresolved trauma. They want power and they'll do anything to get it. You need to do the opposite, stay hidden. Be smart. The urgency of her words hung like a heavy weight, and a chilling realization crept into the hearts of the group. They had to outsmart an enemy driven by desperation. Then let us move, Collins commanded, tightening his resolve. We prepare to be a fortress instead of a target. But just as they began brainstorming strategies, a sudden crash echoed from the direction of the main entrance, louder and more menacing than the last. Get ready! Collins bellowed, eyes wide with fierce urgency. Stay sharp! Racing hearts and heavy breaths filled the room. In that moment of panic, Sarah felt the stakes rise higher. They were on the brink of something unforeseen. Were they ready for it? As the door shakes again, rattling perilously, a shimmering thought broke through Sarah's mind. What if there's an unexpected ally among the chaos? Would they find hope in the darkness? The crash reverberated through the cramped room, shadows shifting as fear wrapped around them like a thick fog. Collins tightened his jaw, scanning the faces of those around him. All too quickly, the warmth of defiance began to thin, replaced by a chill of uncertainty. Keep the children back! He shouted, his voice firm but laced with urgency. They moved instinctively, gathering Jamie and the other younger ones into the corner, whispering calming words that felt like the last flickers of light in a darkening world. The door rattled once more, relentless and unforgiving. Collins gestured to Ethan, who was still glued to the window, heart pounding with apprehension. Ethan, are they coming? Ethan strained to see through the fading light, breath caught in his throat as he caught sight of a group moving furtively in the distance. I think they're gathering outside, he managed, pulse rushing in his ears. They're armed. The woman on the floor pressed her lips together, fear etching deeper lines into her face. We need to act now. If they see us, it will be too late. Collins' eyes darted around the room, searching for an idea, a flicker of hope in the freezing darkness. If we're going to survive this, we need to move quickly, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Put together anything that can be used as a weapon. Chairs, tools, take anything we can find. Ethan nodded, his body moving with a sense of purpose. He collected the nearest rusted wrench from under a table, fingers gripping it tightly. Sarah joined him, determination flaring in her chest as she picked up a broken piece of wood, sharp and jagged at one end. All of us together, she said, encouraging the others, her words wrapping around them like a warm blanket. We can face whatever comes. We're not just survivors, we're fighters. In the back corner, Lucas shifted Jamie nervously, eyes darting between the barricaded door and the older kids. But what if, no what ifs? Sarah interrupted fiercely. We prepare for the worst and hope for the best. It's the only choice we have. With a united resolve forming, the group scattered to arm themselves, each heartbeat stretching time, every second feeling monumental. The crashing sound intensified, a primal warning that threatened to pull them under. Suddenly, a heavy thud resonated as something smashed into the door with a force that rattled the very foundation of the old building. Dust rained down from the ceiling, mixing with the scent of fear and sweat. Someone's trying to break in. Collins snapped. He moved closer to the door, the barricade trembling under the assault. Sarah moved in beside him, gripping the wood tightly, body poised for whatever was about to unfold. We can't let them in, she urged, glancing at Ethan. He met her gaze, a silent understanding passing between them, a shared determination to protect the most innocent lives among them, but just when all seemed lost, the crashing stopped. Instead, a voice rang out, calling from the other side of the door. Hello? Is anyone there? We need help. Please. The group exchanged startled glances. Sarah's heart raced. Could it be a trap, another layer of danger waiting to ensnare them? Ethan stepped forward cautiously, peering through a crack in the barricade. "What do we do?" he whispered, uncertainty gnawing at him. "Let us see who it is," Collins said, surprise hardening his resolve. "Maybe it's another person in need or a potential ally. But we have to be careful." They exchanged wary glances again, the air thick with tension as they slowly maneuvered to make a gap in the barricade. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, a question hanging in the air: would this stranger offer salvation or destruction? As Sarah grasped the edges of the door, her pulse thrumming, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything. The door creaked open, and she was ready to witness the face of their unexpected ally or the embodiment of their deepest fears. Could they find hope in the midst of survival? Would this moment transform their fight for life? And then the door swung wide. The door swung wide, creaking like a ghost from the past. As the light spilled into the room, shadows shifted, revealing a figure standing there, panting heavily. The stranger was a woman, her face smudged with dirt and fear, yet her eyes sparkled with an intensity, a flicker of desperation that pulled them all in. "Please," she gasped, "I need help, they're coming." Collins felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Trust mixed with unease washed over him. "Who are you?" he demanded, trying to control the tremor in his voice. "I'm Rachel," she breathed, stepping closer but keeping her hands visible, empty. "They're after me. A group is chasing me. I don't know how long I can hold them off." Ethan darted a glance at Sarah, eyes wide with uncertainty, but she insisted quietly, "We can't turn her away. What if she's telling the truth?" The woman's fear felt palpable, a living thing hanging in the air. Jamie peered timidly from behind Lucas, eyes wide, taking in the scene as if sensing the gravity of their situation. Collins felt that protective urge swell within him, knuckles widening around the doorframe. If we let her in, she better not be bringing danger with her. Before Rachel could say anything further, the sound of boots crunching over gravel echoed in the distance, interrupting their moment. A collective gasp filled the room as they all turned towards the sound, the memory of the crash still fresh in their minds. "Do you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're close. They're here," Rachel exclaimed, panic creeping into her tone. "I saw them not far from here. We don't have much time." With a sudden urgency, Collins stepped back and waved Rachel in. "All right, you can come in," he said, voice steadied by protectiveness. "But we have to move now." As she hurried inside, Collins quickly shut the door, helping to reinforce the barricade. The group gathered around Rachel, their faces reflecting a mix of anxiety and curiosity. "What do they look like?" Collins asked, his heart thudding a rapid rhythm. "They're organized," Rachel replied, her eyes darting around the room as if expecting an ambush. "They've been raiding homes. They're armed and ruthless." Collins exchanged a look with Sarah. He didn't want to scare everyone more than they already were, but they had to be prepared. "Ethan, keep watch. The rest of us will find anything we can use to protect ourselves." Rachel interrupted, "Wait. If they find you, they won't just take what you have. They might take you, too." The weight of her words hit like a heavy blow. Jamie clutched Lucas's arm tighter, and tears started pooling in her innocent eyes. Collins felt anger rise in him. How had the world become so unforgiving? "We won't let that happen," he said finally, his voice firm. "We need a plan. Everyone, let us carve out a strategy." They formed a circle, voices rising in urgency as they discussed their options. Rachel stepped closer to Collins, her hand trembling lightly. "We need to make noise," she suggested. "If they think we're bigger than we are, they might back off." A moment of silence followed her suggestion, then Collins nodded slowly. "If they come to get us, we'll show them we're not afraid." The renewed sense of purpose surged through the room, each person understanding the stakes. They had each other, and together, they just might stand a chance. But as they prepared, another ominous sound slithered through the air, footfalls outside, creeping closer, echoing like a haunting melody. "Get ready," Collins warned, heart racing. "This is going to be a fight for our lives." And just as they settled into their positions, the door rattled once more, aligning perfectly with the growing dread in their chests. Would their newfound ally truly turn the tide for them? Or had they just invited doom into their midst? In the silence, fear roared to life, entwining with a fragile thread of hope. What would happen when the door finally gave way? The door rattled violently. Tension wrapped around the group tighter than a noose. Sarah could feel her heart racing, every beat echoing in her ears like a war drum. Each breath she took felt heavier, pregnant with anxiety. They were closer. Could they really stand together against what was coming? Collins moved to the front, muscles taut, prepared for anything. "On my count," he directed, voice low but steady. "We stand together. No one fights alone." He looked into Sarah's eyes, his fierce determination pulsing between them. For a fleeting moment, they shared a wordless understanding. This was about survival, about hope, about protecting those they loved. 3, 2, 1. Collins shouted, pushing against the barricade. The door lurched under the pressure, a shudder coursing through the wood. He gritted his teeth, and the sound of splintering wood filled the air. The kids huddled behind him, Jamie clutching Lucas, their whispering breaths a reminder of everything on the line. Then it happened. The door burst open, old hinges creaking, and before them stood a group of raiders. Shadows loomed, rough faces twisted with wicked intent. "There they are," the leader barked, his voice a growl, teeth bared like an animal ready to pounce. "Now!" Collins shouted, everyone rushing to action. Ethan, with the rusted wrench still clutched tight, charged forward, catching the first raider off guard. The metal clashed against skin, and a grunt of surprise echoed in the room. Sarah followed, wielding the jagged piece of wood like a sword, her resolve fueling her. Behind them, the others defended their ground. Rachel was surprisingly fierce, throwing empty cans and whatever she could grab, wielding her fear as a weapon. The kids kept close, finding strength in each other, Jamie and Lucas holding their own. A small alliance formed in the chaos, but the raiders were relentless, pushing in past their defenses. Collins fought hard, yelling encouragement as he held the line, his heart racing with adrenaline and a fierce desire to protect. "Stay together," he commanded, a rallying cry that surged through the group. As the skirmish raged on, they dug deep, each person pulling from the wellspring of hope inside them. They became each other's shields, fighting not just for their homes, but for the family they had unexpectedly formed. The connections they had built in the last few weeks became their armor. Sarah felt it within her, a fire that burned brighter than fear. Suddenly, they heard shouts from outside. The sound of a siren wailed in the distance, growing closer. The raiders hesitated, glancing uneasily at one another. "Back off!" the leader barked, the air thick with tension. In that precious moment of uncertainty, Sarah seized her opportunity. "Now! Everyone push!" she yelled, a surge of courage exploding within her. With one unified force, they pressed forward, breaking out of the cramped space, creating a wave of resistance that pushed the raiders back. When they charged, fear and adrenaline coiling in their veins, it was like a rush of thunder breaking through a storm. Sarah and Collins led the charge, side by side, fierce and unyielding. They were more than mere survivors, they were fierce protectors. As the last raider stumbled backward and fell to the ground, gasping, a collective shout erupted among the group. The sirens grew louder as help arrived, a manifestation of the hope they had clung to through the darkest moments. Minutes later, they found themselves standing together, breaths heavy, hearts racing but filled with victory. The strangers who had become neighbors' friends held each other tightly, embracing the hard-earned reality of togetherness. "Are we safe?" Jamie asked, eyes wide, innocence still shining through the chaos. "Yes, buddy," Sarah said, her heart swelling with pride as she saw the spark in her children's eyes. "We fought for this. We're safe together. In that moment, amidst the wreckage and embers of what once was, they realized that they had forged something beautiful from the ashes. They were no longer just a community, they were a family, interconnected by the strength of shared struggles and victories. Mr. Thompson stepped forward, his face radiant with relief. We faced the storm, he said, a smile breaking across his face, and we stood strong. And in that simple truth, Sarah felt something change within her. No longer just a single mother wrestling with her fears, she had transformed into a beacon of strength for her community. She laughed, radiant joy flooding her heart as she looked around at the faces of friends new and old. Together, we can rebuild, she declared, lifting her chin with newfound determination. As they began to clear away the remnants of their struggle, the sun began to peek through the clouds, illuminating their community with a warm glow, a glimmer of hope that had once felt far away, but from that day forward, they would never let hope slip away again. They would stand together, unified and resilient, ready to face whatever storms life may throw their way. This was their moment. This was their new beginning. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because it really helps me reach more people. Comment your reactions and feelings about this life-changing ending. You matter, and please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the hope and strength we've found together.